Hi, for Tacitus Today. Tacitus Today is your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this live stream as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about propaganda that frequently does the rounds when it attempts to justify mass migration of illiterate, unqualified peasants to the first world, or from the third world to the first world. It tries to justify to say it somehow delivers and provides vast economic benefit. Now, these benefits aren't explained. There are throwaway lines like, well, they work and pay taxes, so what's your problem? And they do jobs that the local people won't do or refuse to do, or with our aging population, we need new workers, things like that. Now, these are all throwaway lines. They're propaganda lines, and even at a little bit of scrutiny, you can tell that those claims of this is the benefits these illiterate peasants bring, then you can see that it's all a load of nonsense. It's all stupid, silly globalist propaganda. And again, I'm reminding my listeners once more that the globalist program is an ideology. It's not a democratic process. It's not something where they're trying to win you over. They're imposing this ideology, and they will tell any lie and make any threat and accept any collateral damage in the imposition of this ideology, which is exactly what they're doing at the moment, by the way. I just recently, as in a few hours ago, I saw an article where the German political establishment is thinking of outlawing their primary opposition, their political opposition, their democratically elected opposition. They're just going to outlaw them, or so the conversation's going. Because, well, we don't like your views, so the rest will gang up to say that the people, even though the people are voting for you in large numbers, we don't care. To protect democracy, we're going to remove a party democratically elected. That's beautiful. I just love that. But this shows you how ideological the globalist project is and how much collateral damage they're prepared to accept in the imposition of this ideology. In fact, they don't see it as collateral damage. They see it as just pushing the consequences of their ideology onto others. And the people who suffer from the consequences of their ideological imposition are their enemies anyway. So who gives a fuck is their rationale. Coming back to this idea of bringing in third world peasants, what possible benefit to a first world economy can illiterate peasants from the third world have? Now, let's sort of go through the one by one. They're prepared to work at jobs that the local population won't. Well, I've got a few issues with that, because let's suppose that's true, and I don't accept it is, by the way, but let's suppose it's true, then, or has any basis in accuracy, let alone being true. That means that these people are prepared, these third world peasants. Remember, they're illiterate in their own language and they're qualified in nothing. So they can only do the entry-level jobs, the very basic minimal jobs that themselves will be subject to, or many of those jobs being subject to automation or AI and that sort of thing. But they can't speak the language, so they can't really be given much in the way of complicated instructions. If they are doing jobs that other people supposedly don't want to do, that means the wages are too low, and people don't want to do that work because the wages are too low. Well, that's not a problem, because in a capitalist economy, if the wages are so low that people don't want to work at the job, you just increase the wages or increase the benefits. Maybe you provide, breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the place. So you do something to make the job attractive, and you can do that through various means. Increased income, of course, is one. You can offer various benefits, such as providing meals and the like, or other things. Whatever is going to be of value to the prospective applicant. So why, in a capitalist economy, that's what you do. If you can't find the workers, you say, okay, well, how can I attract the workers? And you look at what you can do now. That's not happening. You might find pockets of it here and there, but particularly in areas that are not close to transport links, those sorts of things, or are hard to get to, or the hours are unusual. Those are the places where they're finding it or the pay is particularly low. But those are the places where they're finding it hard to get workers. Now, there are workers out there. They can get the workers. That's not the problem. But they're not prepared to adjust their offering to attract these workers. Or to retain them once they've got them. So this is a thing where the structure of the current sort of, if you like, the globalist economy is, no, you don't have to pay those people anymore. You don't have to give them anymore. You don't have to offer them anymore. The solution here is to bring in peasants from the third world. Well, they won't come to the West. Those third world peasants, they won't just come to the West sort of because they feel like it. They're illiterate peasants. They've never been out of their own village. That doesn't matter. We'll use NGOs and we use all sorts of globalist, politicized, radicalized ideological infrastructure to help these people get from, including providing all their transport, all their food, all their clothing, all their water, but the shelter while they come. We'll provide everything for them to help them get to encourage them and ensure that they get to the West. So that wouldn't happen naturally. So we're looking at no market forces in determining the wages of these entry-level jobs or the benefits, along with the wage. And we're looking at no natural forces in moving the third world people to the first world. So we're not talking anything organic, anything natural here. We're talking ideological activity on both ends. Ideologically, why should we pay these people more to do those jobs? Ideologically, why should we do it? The practical reality is you have to if you want to get the work, but ideologically, we don't want to. Ideologically, we'll bring in the third world peasants. That'll show those damn white peasant trash lowlifes that they can't demand more from us, which is really sort of where that's going. Now, so neither of these things are benefiting the first world economy in reality. Also, they bring in, if you like the term moral hazard, an idea of laziness where we don't have to do anything to solve the problem. We can just go to the ideological sort of font here and get peasant workers from the third world. That's all we need to do. Now, so training and investment in employees and investment in your fellow citizens, that drops off the edge of the cliff as well. And that is definitely a moral hazard of some proportion and something that incrementally is eating away at the fabric of our society. So this is another. Now, because the wages are low, the way these third world people live, when they're living in their, I was surprised when you go to places like India and those poorer countries. When I was doing a lot of business traveling, and the company would allocate a driver with a car to drive me around, and the driver would be typically some imported rural peasant, and they had a little bit of English, and in some cases I might have a little bit of the local language myself, so you kind of work it out. And these people will live 20 to a one room hut out in the middle of nowhere. Now to them that's the only existence they've ever known. They don't know any different until somebody brought along some sort of cable television or a wireless internet connection or something to the village, and they looked at how Western people live and they went, holy fuck, I didn't know people. You mean you people get your own room in the house? Holy shit, I didn't even know that was possible. You mean you've got running water in the house? You mean you can flick a switch and a light comes, all that sort of stuff. And they didn't really appreciate how many people in the West lived that way. But this guy, but he again, they're living 20 to a one bedroom hut. So when they come to the West, they can live that same way, except now instead of a hut in the middle of nowhere, they got an apartment downtown with again running water, flushing toilets, lights that switch on, and so on. And they've substantially improved their quality of life and standard of living from that material aspect, at least. And so they're prepared to live that way and are able to live that way. That's how they've always lived. And so they can live in ways that Western people, haven't lived for many, many hundreds of thousands of years, haven't lived that way. So this is something as well. They bring in with them a very different communal concept of living. Now, in pretty much everywhere in Australia, you can't have more than a certain amount of people in a dwelling. So you can have, if you've got a one-bedroom apartment, you can only have, I think, 4 people or 3 people maximum or something. And if I remember days when certainly as a kid, when there were people at uni that had tight budgets and that sort of thing, or people who were professional sort of unemployment benefit type receivers, they would go and live for 5 or 6 to a one-bedroom apartment, say, and they would have a council, local council, local government official coming around saying, hey, you can't do that, and threatening to fine them and take them to court and so on. But this is different if you're a third world peasant living 17 to a one-bedroom apartment, and I'm thinking of one sort of off the top of my head right now. The government doesn't get, everybody just looks the other way. So because the laws are not being enforced as they once were, these people can get away. Now, if the law was enforced and those 17 people, hey, you can't do that, they would have to then, for those 17 people, they would have to get four apartments instead of one. So suddenly the economics of working at these entry-level jobs, where maybe they're just getting cash under the table or anything like that, working illegally even, then they're not able to do that. So then they can't work at those jobs either, because they have a Western cost of living, if you like, to meet, whereas so they're on par with the white guys now, so they can't. So only by allowing laws to be degraded and not enforced for ideological reasons, which is what the case is here, the incoming third world peasants are permitted to live illegally, permitted to live with a communal cost of living structure that's not available to white people. Or the people that are indigenous here. So that's that's a big, and this is again, this is part of a creeping moral hazard. What it means is that laws are being selectively non-enforced in order to suit some ideological purpose, which is in this case, replacing white people and restructuring the economy away from market forces. And this moral hazard of laws not being forced has crept into everything, not just sort of local government, but all sorts of law, activist law, ideologically activist law, where again, when we saw recently in Britain, you can be arrested for calling someone a lesbian, but you can rampage down the main street, breaking shop windows, stealing things, and the police will do nothing. That sort of thing. And this moral hazard effect, which is again deeply ideological in its implementation and in its concept and its selective enforcement. So that's one thing that's absolute nonsense, that the third world peasants are brought in to fill jobs that people, the local people won't do. It's not that they won't do it. It's just economically not viable for people to work at these jobs, particularly if they're not near convenient, transport hubs. Like there's a case where there's an outfit where they go, a warehouse where they can't find employees, but entry-level wages, but it's several kilometres to the nearest train station and so on. So people have to own a car on an entry-level wage. It's very, very difficult to own a car, as in the cost of owning a car. Petrol costs and car ownership costs and so on. So this is proving to be an issue in certain areas. Now, if they would have changed the conditions they are offering, they could quite easily get people. So these are issues to be considered. But when you're moving away from a market-driven economy, which is what we are, into an ideological economy, again, which we are in the West, then people are less inclined to respond to what are clearly market signals, which is I've got to do something different if I want to attract employees. So that's we can put that one to bed. That third world peasants coming in to do. And remember, they're illiterate in their own language and are skilled at nothing. So we're not as if we're bringing in sort of high-powered high-powered workers at all. We're just bringing in people who are specific low-wage flunkies, and that needs to be accepted and recognised. The other thing is is how these people pay. Well, they're working and they're paying taxes and they're good citizens, yada yada. Well, that's simply not true. The unemployment rate amongst these third world peasants brought in is quite high. Remember, again, they're illiterate and qualified at nothing. So there's very high. Like even if you compare it, say in Britain, Polish people have for example, or brown and black, but Middle Eastern people have an unemployment rate 5 times that of Polish people, because the Polish people make an immediate effort to learn English and acquire some sort of skill, although they may already have some sort of a skill, such as concreters or whatever. So whereas the illiterate peasants from the Middle East or Bangladesh are much less likely to acquire or attempt to acquire those skills or learn the language in any meaningful way. So they're much less likely to work and integrate on anything other than the entry level of the entry level. Now, there's been a scam recently in the UK where and elsewhere, you see it around in Australia as well. There's a big demand for courier drivers at the moment, and also people jobs like pizza delivery and those sorts of things. So what the Indians and the subcontinent type people do, and others as well, the Middle Eastern people, is they'll get a contract to say deliver pizzas or be courier, deliver Amazon packages to people's houses, that sort of thing, and they'll get that gig, and then they'll sublet it out to an illegal immigrant or to a third world illiterate peasant, legal or not. And pay them some sort of a pittance while they collect the money. So someone can have 5 contracts to do the parcel delivery thing, and that would be not really. Each run would be not much above a minimum wage, really, but they then pay these third world peasants half the minimum wage. But of course, they can sustain that because they're living 20 to a one bedroom apartment. So this sort of thing, and again, this comes back to the moral hazard thing, where I don't have to be a good deliverer. I don't have to follow the law. I don't have to pay the taxes. I don't have to do. I can just do some bullshit thing on the side here using these third world peasants. And I can sit back and make the money. So, but that money isn't being invested in the local economy or in the local training or local efficiency or raising standards or anything. It's quite apart from being illegal. It's just gaming the system so that one third world freeloader can parasite off his fellow citizens when he brings them out. That's also the where there's vast buying of franchises, takeout food franchises, and restaurant type things of these third world people, and they use the money from the third world and a third world investment to bring it in, and then use various offshore management fees to make sure they don't make any profit locally, so they don't pay any tax in the West. They then import their peasant, their fellow citizens, their peasants from the diaspora. Then they bring them to the West as so-called skilled workers, and they scam the system and game the system again by effortlessly bypassing it. So when you get all so many people from the third world who are non-Indigenous, they have no qualms about gaming the system and screwing the system. Not that there aren't white people that did it, there were, but now you're looking at this massive diaspora in Australia now. It's approaching 50%, where they've got no investment in the local culture, the local economy. They're here to take. They're here to parasite. Now you'll get exceptions. There'll be ones that do want to contribute, and there's no question of that. But the majority of them are gaming the system, and they think they owe nothing to the white people or even their fellow citizens. They're here, and they come from very corrupt countries. They come from caste system countries where the top caste, brutally and aggressively exploits the lower castes, and they come to Australia or the West generally, and they see that well, why can't we do the same thing as we did there? So they bring all their bad habits with them and contribute nothing in the way of good habits, in my view. So they bring out their diaspora to for example, Australia, or it could be any Western country, to work as just flunkies and you can be an illiterate peasant for some of this, just burger flipping or something, and they bring them out in large numbers, and they package up their pay with accommodation and food and so on. So these people fall under the taxation threshold with their income, so they don't pay tax. So the business doesn't pay any tax. The owners are getting salary from offshore. They're avoiding tax while they're driving, top of the range Mercs. Part of an international investment class. The workers aren't paying any tax. So no one's paying any fucking tax here. So this is no benefit to the economy. Now, on the other side, excuse me, some people say, well, if we didn't have these peasant workers working for next to nothing and all these scams going on, then we wouldn't have all these takeout food places. So that would lower the quality of life of Western workers and citizens generally. I reject that, because other than in the rural areas where you see the local white kids getting jobs in some of these places, at least, wherever, I noticed there was a cafe restaurant just near where we are, and one day it just happened, the entire staff are now Asian. It was white staff only. Then one day the entire staff were Asian. So they've bought into this cafe restaurant, and again they're importing their illiterate peasant diaspora buddies to work there. So and they're putting them up in some little shitbox apartment. But again, the local white people couldn't do that. So again, the benefits in terms of investment in training, quality of life, all of these sorts of things, tax paid, are just bullshit. They don't exist, and I don't think having a takeout to even a small village can have. So, I live near a smallish village, and it's not tiny, but it's not a huge place, and they've got 3 pizza places within 200 meters, 2 takeout chicken places, and something else. So there's 6 takeout food, and that's on top of above the local supermarket chains are not far away, and they do things like cooked chickens to go and sandwiches to go, things like that. So there's no shortage. So if you took out the businesses that rely on this cheap third world peasant labour, takeout food businesses, you'd probably go from 6 to 2, I would guess. Now, coming back to the issue of economics, none of these businesses, these takeout food businesses, could survive. They wouldn't exist without this cheap peasant labour and without the tax avoidance scams. They just couldn't exist. So how is that a benefit to the economy or a benefit to anybody? Similarly, it creates an ever bigger and ever expanding artificial economy that is not responding to market forces. They exist within the globalist ideology of these businesses. They're allowed to exist. Their very existence depends on the globalist ideology. It does not depend on market forces and market signals. So let's just sort of sum up here. Is there any benefit to the West in the Western first world economies in bringing out this cheap third world peasant labour? I can't see a single benefit. Now, in the overall sense, in the overall scheme of things, there is not a single benefit. Are there one-off benefits here and there? I recall looking at I needed a tree had got termites in my backyard. A tree had got termites in it, and the council was saying I had to chop the tree down. So I'm fine with that. Okay. So if you go to the council recommended tree loppers, tree lopper who they would get rid of, they cut the tree down and get rid of the wood. They wanted like thousands of dollars to do this, and they broke it down for me that this was their insurance and this was, the fee they had to pay to the council, and all this sort of stuff, and they needed a special safety officer on site, and it was all very serious and very expensive too. Now, given the council was sort of demanding I did something, and I thought, well, I kind of got to do it. And you get a certain amount of time, and then they can take you to court and all sorts of shit. So I thought, well, I got to do something here. So I called around to others, and there was a guy with he had a little advert in the local paper, a tree lopping service, and he had some name that didn't sound very local, and so I called him up, and he was going to do the whole thing for 10% of 15%, whatever, of what everyone else was wanting to chop the tree down. So I thought, you got to be kidding me. And I thought, have I heard this right? If there's a difference in price, sure, but a difference like he's 1/10 or 1/6 or something of the price. So anyway, this guy turns up in this, and because his English was so poor, I couldn't sort of verify. Do you have insurance? Yes. Oh, yes. I have. Yes. And he just kept saying, so it was hard to tell what he did and didn't have, but he's insisting that was his price. I think, do you want to come around? No. I do. So anyway, he turns up with this fucking chainsaw. He turns with a chainsaw and a rope, and he's I think he's a Pacific Islander or something like that. But he turns with a chainsaw and this rope, and this beat up, fucked up old car, which didn't look like it was registered, and a trailer that was so rusty that I thought it was going to fall to pieces. So he turned up, and I'm looking almost in amazement. And next thing, he's up the tree. He just gets this rope, climbs up the tree, starts chopping stuff, and definitely no safety officers here. As I was looking in open-jawed amazement. Anyway, he chopped the whole tree down, and then one of his buddies comes out, and they start taking the bits into this trailer, which they overloaded to the shed. The wheels were bending, and it's got to collapse any second now. I'm still watching in amazement. And that's it. He was gone, and the whole thing cost me like $300 cash. And so, but the reality is, and that's a one-off thing, that guy was breaking about every employment law, I would think. Every time I kept asking, can you show me your insurance certificate? Yes, I show. Yes. He didn't have any of it in mind. I mean, thinking about it now, he didn't have a single thing. But look, those are the corners they cut, and those are the things those people do. It's only by avoiding all the legal and other insurance type requirements that they can do these things. If they had to work and exist and live like the rest of us, they couldn't do it. So that the benefit they bring is what, the extent of the illegality. So these are the things. So I don't think that, in my view, they do not provide any added value to the economy, and they create an underground economy, and that's no benefit in moral hazard terms to the West at all, in my view. You've been fantastic today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.